Hello everybody. In this video, I'm going to speak about the experiment which we have conducted, that is comparing execution of bubble sort of 99 random integer numbers on RISC and CISC architecture processors. So in this, I'm going to discuss about the introduction and RISC processor comparison, and my one of my friend Srinivas will be explaining about CISC processor comparison and conclusion. So introduction. The activity mainly focus on the architecture of processor as well as how they execute instructions. In this example, in this experiment, we have performed the execution of bubble sorting of 99 random integer numbers. This number is specifically 99 because we are actually experimenting this even on the Snapdragon 675 processor, which is a RISC processor. So it was one of our constraint to just restrict ourselves to use until this number to have a proper result in all the devices. So this was one of the main reason. So we are performing this experiment on CISC and RISC processors, where in CISC we are using Snapdragon. In CISC we are using Apple M1 and Intel i5 10th Gen processor, and for RISC we are using Snapdragon 675 and Apple's A13 Bionic chip. So let's understand the code. So code. We have imported random and time, which are both inbuilt packages. So this is our traditional bubble sort method. So we have two for loops, and the sorting is done, and it returns the sorted list. So at initially we'll take empty list. So here we are going to append integer numbers from 0 to 99,000. So after appending, we are going to randomly shuffle the numbers from 0 to which are appended from in the list that are 0 to 99,000. So here we are going to store the timestamp in a variable t1. So once the operation, we are going to print starting operations once we call the bubble sort method. So the argument passed from bubble sort method is list. The list is nothing but the randomly shuffled list, which consists numbers of 0 to 99,000 in random order. And once the list is returned sorted, we are going to print the operation done in taking the difference between the timestamps, so that we can uh, get to know about the get to know the duration, how long the code has been executed. So this is the time taken for sorting in Snapdragon 675, and this is and the other one is the time taken to execute sorting in A13 Bionic chip. So we can see that Snapdragon 675 is taking more time, that is 4,233 seconds for sorting the bubble, for sorting the integer numbers, and similarly for and on the other hand we have Apple. Uh, Apple A13 chip takes just 1,248 seconds. So why is A13 taking less time for executing the code as compared to the Snapdragon 675? Let's find out. So A13 Bionic chip consists of two performance cores and four efficient cores, while uh, Snapdragon 675 consists of 8 cores, where even in 8 cores, the 2 cores are considered to be performance core, and other 6 cores are considered to be efficient cores. So performance cores will be having high clock speed, and efficient cores will be having average clock speed, like 1 gigahertz or 1.1 gigahertz. So over here, A13 Bionic chips performance cores is clocked to 2.65 gigahertz, as compared to Snapdragon, which is just 2 gigahertz. So there is variation between 0.65 gigahertz, which is a huge variation. And even A13's efficient cores has just 1.8 gigahertz of speed. So comparing to the Snapdragon 675, it has just 1.7 gigahertz of speed. So the difference is 0.1 gigahertz. Even this can be a small variation, but most probably the when we execute the program, this program is executed on the performance core. So we can say that A13 Bionic chip has a higher and because it is 0.65 gigahertz faster as compared to the Snapdragon 675. So further, there is detailed comparison between A13 Bionic chip and Snapdragon 675. So this architecture name is A13, and here the architecture name is six Creo 640. So here we have in total in A13 Bionic chip we have six cores, where two is performance core and four are efficient core. And here we have eight cores, where two are performance core and remaining six are the efficient cores. So the speed of performance cores is 2.65 gigahertz, and here it is just 2 gigahertz. So here we have 1.8 efficient core speed, and here 1.8 gigahertz of efficient core speed, and here we have 1.7 gigahertz of efficient core speed in Snapdragon 675. So the technology used is 7 nanometer technology in A13 Bionic chip and 11 nanometers in Qualcomm Snapdragon 675. So we have same both instruction set, but the scores given and Antutu scores given for CPU memory and overall is greater in A13 Bionic chip, as it is even the latest one of the flagship and was the latest at its age. But Snapdragon 675 is just an efficient alternative. So the mean average time taken for executing 99 for executing this bubble sorting of 99K number is 1300 seconds, and even for the Snapdragon it is 4236 seconds, which is around 70 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, I am Srinivas Dixit. Now let us continue the discussion with M1 processor and Intel IdeaPad engine processor. We had executed the experiment for both the processors with 8 GB RAM setup. We found that M1 processor executed much more faster, that is on an average around about 280 seconds, and Intel IdeaPad engine processor took on an average about 920 seconds. If we look deeper into the processors, we found that M1 processor had 8 cores and Intel i5 engine processor had 4 cores. And in M1 processor, 4 performance cores were there, which were clocked at 3.2 GHz, and the other 4 cores were the B cores, which were clocked at 2.6 GHz each. And i5 engine processor had only 4 cores with base speed of 1.2 GHz and with peak speed of 3.6 GHz. And now with M1 processor, it had more bandwidth than compared to the Intel i5 engine processor. That is on an average about 68 gigabits per second, and Intel had about 51 gigabits per second of bandwidth. So for the communication, the bandwidth becomes important. So we can see here that M1 had much more bandwidth, so it can fetch and communicate much more faster. And we can also see that M1 processor has been optimized for Apple devices, that is hardwares. So it had upper hand on that part also. So now let us look for the chart for comparison of both. So we can see here that the architecture difference is Ice Lake architecture with i5 engine, and M1 processor had it is its own M1 architecture. So we can see that the cores difference is there, and also we can see that the clock speeds for the each course is also the difference. Now we can see here that the bandwidth of 68.2 gigabits per second for the M1 and bandwidth of 51.2 gigabits per second for the Intel i5 engine processor. So it becomes important that the better the bandwidth, the communication is much more faster and efficient. So now Here we have the benchmarks for both of them. For single core, we can see that it is the variation is about hundreds, and for the multi-core benchmark, we can see that the variation is about thousands. So we can come to conclusion for this benchmark that the M1 processor has the upper hand here, because we can see that its performance is much more better in the multi-cores, and hence we can say that it can be possible for the M1 processor to take this much seconds for the execution, and the Intel processor will take this much seconds for execution of the program. So moving ahead, we can see the comparisons for the other processors. So we can see here, this is the execution time for the Bionic chip, and this is the execution time for the Intel. And here we can see that these are the execution times for the M1 processor, and this is the execution time for Intel. So we can come to the conclusion from all these data that the M1 processor had outstanded all the other processors in terms of execution and the time taken in this experiment. And we can also come to the conclusion that the Intel i5 Gen processor executed quicker or much more faster than the Bionic chip. And also we can see here that the M1 processor had 4 cores for optimization, which were clocked at 3.2 gigahertz, and other 4 cores were there. And for the A13 Bionic chip, we had seen that 4 cores were of 1.8 gigahertz clock, and 2 cores were 2.65 gigahertz. But in case of Snapdragon 675 processor, 2 cores were of 2 gigahertz, and other 6 cores were 1.6 gigahertz, 7 gigahertz. In spite of having both the cores, number of cores same, the Apple A13 Bionic chip had the upper hand here due to the clock speed of the individual cores here. So the Apple A13 Bionic chip is much more better in performance and in execution of this program in this experiment. And we can list out that Apple outstands all the processors, so it can come in the top list, and i5 Engine processor will be in the second, and A13 Bionic chip in the third, and the last part is for the Snapdragon 675 processor. We can come to this list because we can see here the time comparisons for the all the processors, and also we had discussed about the time taken for the execution in the beginning also. So this is the conclusion that Apple processor, that is M1 processor, had the upper hand, and hence it is the fastest processor in our experiment. Thank you.